Well, thank you very
Success.
much. So, after needing some technical support,
Next time I can just kick it.
Yeah.
So this is the Community Relations Committee meeting for September 10th, 2019. And Jane isn't here, so I'm acting chair. Now we have a rotating timekeeper. Do I have volunteers for someone to keep track of time?
I can do it.
Thank you very much. So, I'm just going to go down the list. Jane Hamill is not present. I am present. Mary Lou? No. Margaret's here. Buddy, I would say, is not here. Abby? You're yes, Abby. And Emily, yes.
Yes.
And
Present.
Alyssa, I'm getting to know people. This
Yes.
is wonderful. And Patricia or Patty?
Patty.
Yeah.
Patty, okay.
And Jan Norman.
Yes.
Okay, so, such as they are, I've shared a pile of minutes in the center. It's 2 pages. And I get here and think, oh, I could have sent these by email. I'm sorry that I didn't. So if you take a minute.
Oh, okay.
Looking at these, I suppose I should have formally called this meeting to order. I think that, I assume I did that when I introduced the meeting.
And there's one typo, John's name is listed twice under absent.
Right.
Okay. Oh, okay, that's what you mean, he was out twice. Very good. Thank you.
We really missed you.
We did.
Double.
I have a question about 3A.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what it means in terms of allow, community members to participate in the proceedings in an electronic manner.
Okay, so this was public speak, and this nice young man, Aaron, came. So he was asking about whether there's a possibility we could get updated technology. I suppose along the lines of what he'd seen in Amherst. I think, again, at public speak, they tell us information. So this is on the agenda also at new business number A, so we can talk about that further.
Okay.
So I think what I would ask is whether this looks to people who were here like that's a fair representation. So are there any other questions? People needing more time? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve as corrected.
Oh,
Yes,
did you need a motion?
I do need a motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay. All right, so it's now public speak time if needed. And I would think you're here. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Deborah Lucia, and the reason I'm here actually is because I was just recently appointed to the committee. So I guess I was approved last week sometime by the city council.
I'm sorry, and you
That's
know what,
okay.
I noticed your name, and here I was saying there's an 11th member, but, so let me add you to being present here.
Okay.
So your name is Deborah?
It's spelled Deborah, D-E-B-O-R-A,
Uh-huh,
and the last name is L-U-S-N-I-A.
okay. Thank you for attending.
Sure, so I'm happy to be here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in a sense, you're part of us. You're not really public for public speak.
Yeah, I guess so.
So it seemed to me that it would be appropriate, I was telling some of the early comers, that although I made a feeble effort to get a matter on the agenda that was sent to us by email, and my memory isn't as good as some of yours, but it was an invitation for us to pick a representative to send to an event. It seemed to me we could at least mention it on public speak time, but because I didn't get it on the agenda enough in advance, I got it so that they posted it yesterday, but that's not the 48 hours. But we could mention that, but I might say that their event is gonna occur before it's properly noticed so that we could vote, say, to send a representative. So this might be a moot point anyway. But it seems to me we can at least say in public speak that we got the correspondence asking whether we would choose someone to send as a representative to. And I could notice that next time for an agenda, just that we could talk about that kind of a concept. But anyway, so.
So that would go, if we're skipping, that could, we could have that, we could ask to have that added to the agenda for next time.
Yes. But again, by the next meeting, the
Right.
event in question will
Yeah, I know
have
what the
already
event
taken
is.
place,
Yeah.
so, but,
Is there a broader agenda item, like, are we at this juncture of our maturity ready to send a representative representing our committee to some other event?
I
Right?
don't think so. I think that was the sentiment that we
Yes.
were
But I
all-
think-
we don't-
but I think what we could do, because that whole question isn't properly noticed, so we can't really properly discuss it,
Okay.
I think that I would add that to an agenda for the next one so that it's properly noticed, and then we can consider the concept procedures. So, but I thought, out of respect to the correspondence, I would just say, we got this correspondence, let's add at least the concept to an agenda.
Great.
And then,
And I would look to include a question, in that, like, did other committees feel it was appropriate to send a member to that partisan event?
But also, what made me uncomfortable was that there seemed to be discussion via email
Right.
about that.
Yeah,
And
and
that's why
even-
I sent the thing that said, this seems to be an
Yeah.
agenda
Agenda
item.
item.
and
Yes,
even the
right.
problem is, since even I got it on the agenda yesterday, but it's not enough time, so even now, it's not properly discussed.
I understand,
Yeah.
but that needs to be something we talk about,
As well.
because we can't do it.
Right, before we realized that all that communication needed to not happen on email.
Yeah, well, so let me, in a sense, I'm throwing some of this on public speak that we don't discuss, thinking it's new. So let me just put that, I would put on the next agenda, also maybe open meeting refresher, how about that? Would that, you know? I suppose I'm taking
Or
executive
just,
privilege
no,
to
but
throw it
regarding
on.
email communication. I'd be more, I think a little more specific, because in a month's time, we may not exactly remember what the particular.
Okay, so I'm gonna say open meeting refresher / email.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question? I'm just curious what the representative was going to be going to. What is the organization that was requesting a representative?
Oh, well, I think
I can
that,
look that up.
I think it would be fair, I was
I know
not-
what it was, if it's okay to say.
Sure.
I think so, I was gonna
Just
then
for
call
clar-
up the email, but
Yeah.
if you remember it,
It's
then-
for that informational session about the committees and open spots on committees that's happening on Saturday
Oh,
from 4 to
okay.
6.
It's
So,
like a,
information kind of fair
fair.
about, I'm sure you've seen like the information about it, so.
Oh, I didn't see anything about it being
Prior
open
to that.
spots.
It's more just, yeah, like it's more like there are these committees with, it's also just to learn about committees, but it's also like to find out which committees have open, have open, vacancies. so.
And I would throw out there, not for comment, but to throw out, certainly anyone as a member of the community could just go. So,
Yeah, I'm sure people
but
will.
we
It's not as
can't,
hard
we're
to
not in
do.
a position to choose what to do, but if people go and then it'll be on the agenda for next time.
Yeah, we should talk about it.
So we'll talk about it next time. Okay. All right. So new business, letter A. Now, after having the presentation last time from Erin Evans-Janes, now it's properly noticed and we could talk about what he came in to say. So as you saw in the minutes, he was asking about, I think, electronic subscriptions to agendas. He rather asked about the possibility of commenting. So I think I've got a sense that the city may be working on technology so that one could subscribe to receive agendas, but I'm not somebody that knows that. So it might be, I mean, we may consider whether we need to ask someone from the city to come and talk to us about that. And I'm certainly open to other thoughts. But,
Well, and just to be clear, one of the things he was requesting isn't something that can happen, which is that he wanted the ability to email committee members and have a conversation via email about whatever issues. So that's not something that could happen.
Because that's not part of the open meeting law. I mean, that's what I
Right.
just, the commenting on and participating in an an
Yeah.
electronic manner.
But his broader concern was just the lack of
Access.
accessibility for finding out when meetings are being held, seeing, just that people
Don't
don't
they have to
really
be
know.
noticed?
Yeah, but most people don't know
No.
where to
Where
go, what thing to click on, and he was saying, can you subscribe to kind of a weekly
Right.
event planner that says, on Tuesday they're having this meeting, on Wednesday they're having this meeting.
So if the city, I think
That's a
it's
city
a
issue.
brilliant idea.
Mhm.
Well,
A
yeah,
lot of cities do.
but this would be, I can subscribe and then I would get an email each week telling me what meetings were happening, and that way I would remember that it was this Tuesday and not next Tuesday, and I wouldn't have to check the website or remember to check the website. And I do think that that is, in my sort of opinion, with us being community relations, I think inviting city IT person to our meeting to discuss that and for us to help promote that idea and kind of push for it, that would seem to be in our purview.
But it seemed to me that that would also be for all committees, so that.
That's what he's talking
Right,
about.
Yeah, for all
Yeah.
committees.
And it's
okay.
actually, it's appropriate that he brought it here, saying, here's an issue that I'm seeing, and now it's, our role is now to say, okay, the next step is to bring this to the broader, city governance, so that they can evaluate whether this is a viable thing for the future.
and let me say this, since I have a laptop right in front of me for minutes purposes, but the page, for the record, the page where agendas and minutes are posted, it's easthamptonma.gov/agendas-minutes.html. Now, when I scroll down there, there's a page, it shows boards and committees and each one, and then a downloadable agenda. But I also see the word subscribe RSS right up there. Now, I haven't tried it. Maybe I should try that in order to answer the question as well. But I just see subscribe RSS right there.
Do you dare?
Do I dare try it here? Well, let me click on it. Sure, I dare to do a lot of things. Well, somehow, I've got a MacBook here. I clicked on it and I just got a whole lot of code, so, maybe I do need the city IT.
But I think subscribing to an RSS feed is not the same as subscribing to a listserv,
I'm sure there are differences.
or like access feeds are old.
Yeah.
So it's like having a community-wide listserv or a community-wide way of accessing these agendas and the schedules,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my impression is that I rather think some way so that instead of his having to find the page, a notice goes out to him, whether that's a listserv or, I don't know, an iCal subscription, I think was part of what he was suggesting.
So, yeah, I think to ask if they're, I don't know how this works, do we make a motion to say we want to invite the city IT person to talk about communications with
Next
the public?
meeting?
I would
To our
entertain
next
that one.
meeting?
Yeah.
Is that what we do?
Yes, that's
I
actually.
second
Is
that
that,
motion.
okay, so that was a motion to invite city IT person.
I'm sure that's their official title.
If I knew who exactly, but I think that's broad.
Who maintains the
Yeah.
website? Whoever that person is.
What if we, I mean,
Well,
are you?
two
are-
things.
Yeah.
To hear what they're already doing and what, so we, as the Community Relations Committee, can understand what tools are already out there, and then to present this idea to him or her
Okay.
or them.
So, at the risk of rewriting you, I just want to get it right. So your motion is to invite the city IT person probably to our next meeting or to the next meeting that person can attend,
Mhm.
because we don't know their schedules, to hear about what they are doing and to share this idea with that person.
Right. Because I don't think any of us can answer if that's possible.
Right.
Okay. And,
Or there may be some information that'll just get distributed in writing to us or to the other communities. This is what we're doing, this is, this is what's gone on so far, this is, that might be more efficient for them than coming to meetings after work.
and is that okay with your second, Emily?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right. We've had a request regarding a liaison from the DA. Do you remember that? I'm gonna have to look this up.
Wait. No, I'm trying to remember, that was discussed at the last meeting?
You know, honestly, this
Put on
could
the
have
agenda.
come up at a time when I knew to add it to the agenda. Let's see. All right, Jane forwarded me correspondence from Lori Loisel, if I,
Yeah.
did I say her name right?
Yeah, close.
Who reached out about being our liaison from the DA's office. So let me read this, if I can make it show me the whole. Somehow it just doesn't show up there, sorry. Maybe it's in her next one. Now okay. Well, I have a forwarded message from Jane responding to Lori. Somehow I'm not, let me see if I have any other, no, I don't think I have it. But what Jane apparently received an email from Lori and wrote back saying, thank you for reaching out. I think it would be great to have you as a liaison from the DA's office. We are still such a fledgling group and are slowly working out the logistics of this committee. And she told her, okay, she says, our next meeting is on September 10th at 6:15 p.m. at 50 Payson Avenue, but unfortunately I don't think I'll be able to chair that one for upcoming medical reasons. So she notified me basically to put it on here. But somehow I just don't have, but,
So, is it that we want to invite Lori to the meeting?
well, anybody's free to come. She would have been free to come tonight because public speak.
Right, but if she wants to serve as a liaison, or is that something the mayor needs to?
I think Lori was initially, quote, on the committee, but then because she doesn't live in town, it was inappropriate, and then
Oh,
she
right.
lives in Northampton,
Yeah.
so that was one piece. And so I think the other piece is that at some point, it depends on what issues we're actually dealing with, we may very much want to have a liaison with the DA's office. But I see that as much more situational, or in a particular context, and not necessarily for her to just come and say, oh gee, hi,
Yeah.
you know? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Unless she has IT fix it, but.
And knows how to do it, get this to stop when we
Because we
want it
would want
to.
to sort of establish what her role would be.
Mm.
Correct.
Right,
And we
well,
don't even know what our role is.
right, I think it's premature.
Do you think there's any sense in her helping to clarify her role? Or no?
No.
Let me ask this, do we think, because one question is, do we need other city approval? So this committee got set up and we have a liaison with the police, right?
Right.
Correct.
So how does that get set up? Is this a mayor, we're appointed by the mayor, are our liaisons appointed by the mayor, or do we get to appoint that? And maybe that's a question where we need to invite, for example, the mayor to come in and ask that question, and answer our
Right.
questions.
I wonder too, could maybe, can Jane ask Lori to send like an email describing what she's picturing, so we have an idea of what she's talking about?
Or invite her to public speak to tell us.
Or invite her to just to public speak
And
to
then
tell us?
we can't vote on anything, but then we decide to put it on the agenda for the
Because I don't
next
really
one.
even know what she's suggesting.
Exactly.
That is.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
I think there are certain areas, or certain issues that could arise where we would want the police department and the DA's office. But that seems a million miles away right this minute, because we are not having any particular issues, we're not dealing with anything in particular. You know, I just think if we might find her useful a year from now or 6 months from now, that's all. I just.
But I see Patty's point that it might help us determine a little bit more what, how we should operate, what we should focus on, that sort of thing.
Well, we have-
If we at least hear.
But we have those
or-
all the other surveys, we have the 2 surveys that were done about what are suggested agendas for us to look at. The implicit bias is another factor in that. And
I was just gonna say, I would suggest that we table that, but maybe try to gain clarity on what the steps are to appoint a liaison. So clarify that maybe with the mayor. And then we know that for the next time this comes up, but for now, like, to sort of waste our time and her time with her coming to the meeting seems just silly to me.
So, Abby, would you suggest we do that through a work meeting or something?
Yeah, or just even just a quick clarification with the mayor about just if this has come up in other committees, the issue of liaisons, and is that something that we decide versus, like, 'cause why waste all this time hearing what she has to say to find out that, like, actually liaisons have to be appointed by the mayor? Like, that's a waste of everyone's time. So, don't reinvent the wheel, it's just.
Well, so I'm thinking to volunteer, if people want to make a motion, that I could reach out to the mayor's office requesting that the appropriate person, which might be the mayor, come to our next meeting if possible, or the next available meeting, to review liaisons and how that works. And
Yeah, I'll second that motion. Or make the motion.
I don't know if I
Any
get to
motion.
make a motion,
I don't
so.
know
So
If anyone makes a third.
I was gonna just throw out there too, another option might be to just have one of the committee members just set up a time to meet with Nicole, ask the questions, get the answers, and bring them back.
exactly.
Yeah.
That could be quicker and easier.
Yes,
Mhm.
I was gonna say.
And there might be other questions that we have for her too, like, I feel like a couple of things have come up where we're wondering, even just to schedule something with this IT person, like how to make it more efficient.
Right.
Right,
But
that
then
might
don't we
be-
use we have our kind of administrative liaison, whose name escapes me right now, who works with the mayor.
Lindsay?
what's her name?
Do you mean
Lindsay?
Tracy?
Oh, Tracy. Oh, Tracy.
Tracy, for example, there was another woman also, whose name, I mean,
Tracy and Lindsay.
Tracy and Lindsay, okay, so either one of them to get us that information.
Mhm.
Instead of the mayor having to come to a meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
And if the mayor comes to a meeting, then we're gonna be discussing one thing, but I don't think that's really furthering us as a group
Mm.
Right.
and a focuser, you know?
Might be more efficient to just
Yeah, I
have
totally agree
someone
with
have a
you.
list of questions, go find out and bring them back.
Okay. Well, do we have a volunteer to go do that?
To contact Lindsay
Or to go meet with?
I would pick up the phone. Certainly, I mean,
You yourself, you don't mind?
no, I
being
mean,
the-
if the, you know, very specifically, I would talk to Lindsay or, I just wrote down the name.
Tracy.
Tracy, and ask them how we get, how liaisons happen, and what other question do we have?
The best way to go about contacting someone from IT to come to a
Okay.
meeting.
It might be good to seek, I'm assuming the IT person reports to the mayor, assuming. It
Well,
might
there
be
were-
good to always speak with the mayor first to just even make sure it would be okay to, or maybe the mayor has
Yeah.
answers to those questions.
Actually, after the last meeting, she happened to be outside, and she rather said, oh yeah, if you need someone like IT to come to your meeting, let me know. So I'm sure it's fine to ask her the question and she'd help get the person. Of course, we'll have to coordinate schedules, but,
I think Deb's getting at going directly to the mayor. I think that makes sense. She's very invested in this. This is, you know, her thing that she created and feels really strongly about, and she's given us all her support. And I think she would like to hear from us.
Okay, so are you saying that I shouldn't contact Lindsay and Tracy, I should contact?
I think you should
The
just call the
mayor?
mayor's office and
Yes.
say,
I think she'd be happy.
Blah, blah,
These are
blah.
quick questions, too.
quick
Yes.
questions, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not well, I personally am not necessarily going to ask to speak to the mayor because I think one of her assistants is more appropriate for, you know what I mean? I don't think this rises to a level of needing to contact the mayor or disturb her or disrupt her. She's got other business, you know, that's all. She has these assistants that are our connector to the administration.
And they might know the answers.
You know, I just feel like, I mean, that's just my personal feeling.
That's
If you want me to call the mayor, I'll talk to the mayor.
Well, you can pose the questions to the administrative assistants and
Yes.
if they feel they
Right,
need to.
exactly.
and if you're volunteering, I mean, even by email, I've found Tracy to be really helpful. And I know that if she has a question, she asks the mayor. So I would think that if you reach out to Tracy,
Right, I will.
whether it's by phone or email or whatever you're comfortable with, I think that would work really well.
Okay.
And if you're volunteering to do that, then
You can do it any way you want.
Is there a motion?
I'll do
Well,
it.
Somebody
I'm gonna-
contact in some form the mayor and mayor's office.
Exactly, Tracy's phone number.
does somebody want to make a motion about sending Margaret on our behalf to do this?
I'm thinking that, I should double check this, but I'm thinking that you probably don't have to have motions and have them approved for all of these types of things either. I can't spout off exactly what the guidelines are for when you need to actually have a formal vote and when you don't. I should look that up, but I'm thinking you probably don't need to do that for small things like that. But I could
Okay.
look that up and find out.
Okay. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
see a harm in it, but,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sort of
Yes.
more for overkill than underkill, because the downside is if I was supposed to, well then, that's a problem, but.
Yeah, I guess it's something we can just find out and
Yeah.
Go from there.
I mean, you wanna add to your list whether we have to make a motion for everything?
might as well if you're already.
I mean, you know, and we've had some work sessions, but maybe we could have another one, and you might not have had the benefit to join us, and, I mean, you weren't
Yeah, I've missed
part
a
of
lot.
this.
Yeah, we know
So,
nothing about
I mean,
it.
it might be,
But
that
you sound, I mean, I was gonna ask you, what is your work, because you sound to know a lot about the workings of,
Oh,
Town
well,
government.
I was on the school committee for 6 years.
okay.
And I was chairperson of the school committee for 4 years. And I've been on the school building committee for the high school project and the current middle school elementary project. So those are the official city capacities I've
Okay.
served in. I also chaired the Committee for Better Schools, that was the ballot question committee to try to pass the override to fund both the high school, and then co-chaired the committee that was for building Easthampton's future to pass the override to fund the elementary and middle school project.
You are our IT person.
Well, no, not at all.
No, but she is an expert in the committee work.
And I've just
Yes.
been involved in the school department, mostly as a volunteer, a couple of stints in a paid sort of capacity, but most all of my years that my kids were in school for the 12 years, doing a lot of volunteer work, working with the superintendent's past few.
Well, okay.
Doing a lot of public relations and marketing work mostly. That's my focus, that's my background, and that's the kind of work I've done for the school department over the years. So.
Well, so maybe what we're saying is that Margaret, you'll ask questions, and then I'll just put it on the agenda to ask you to tell us about your communications.
Okay. I think when do we need to use motions is a big question. I think we'll be getting somebody to be talking to us soon. Yeah, okay.
Well, that could be one of the questions that you ask.
Yes.
Okay.
And I just want to say that Nicole, was really clear when she was here at the last meeting that if we need her to come back to a meeting to talk to, answer any questions, she was more than willing to do that. So if it comes down to, it's getting to be a bigger conversation, I'm sure she'd be happy to come and talk to us.
I'm sure too. Okay, well, thank you. We could move on then to continuing business. Letter A was discussion of implicit bias. And I think we all had homework because you gave us links, and the idea is that we could perhaps each take at least one of the tests. I think we can keep this on the agenda. I think there's further materials that Emily would like to share, and you may or may not have one or more now.
Right. One thing I learned is that, the project implicit, includes a lot of researchers from around the country, and they offer presentations to go into organizations like hospitals, universities, courts, law firms, police departments, and and there is a lot of research being done with the data, but I didn't have time to look into how long the data has been collected, and I didn't hear back from the person I emailed, but that was just today. So, I guess I just think that implicit bias is pretty important to know about, and we might as well explore it ourselves a bit, and rather than question it, just explore it, and we can think about learning more about it, and I don't want to be the conduit to giving all the information to you guys all the time. I know that's not what's happening yet, but
Did people, did anybody take one of the tests, or all of them, or any of them?
I've taken them in the past, but
I've taken them in the past, yeah. In the past year, I've taken one, so, yeah, it's very interesting stuff.
I took one. One of the things I found is that I didn't understand the directions very well, for starters. So I'd like to see what because I did it on my phone, it's like, it doesn't say just tap, it said cover with your left hand and cover with your, it had the instructions, so I was like, I had to read 2 sentences over and over and over again, and, and ultimately, it's a time test. There's a piece of it that's based on how quickly you respond.
Right.
So, and if there's a slowness or any real thinking, that slows you down.
Mhm.
So I didn't know how to answer. I thought, well, you know, I mean, if I get it, it says that if you get it wrong, you'll get a red. How could I have something wrong if it's my own bias or lack of? You know, I mean, so I couldn't even. I was contemplating that. So,
Okay.
and it wasn't until the end that I discovered that it is also reflective of how quickly you respond.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to the two good, bad, yes, no, you know, etc. So. As a psychologist, I don't know what I think about this test.
Right, well, what's interesting is I'm sure it was developed long before iPhones, or long before they ever thought of putting them on iPhones. So I did it on a computer screen, and I would think that's a little easier.
But don't they say do it as fast as you can?
They do.
I you know, maybe
Yeah.
similarly to you, I took one about 2 hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I have a busy life, and it's like I
Right.
gotta get to doing it.
Yeah.
And I did it on my phone.
Uh-huh.
I found that it said to me, "Are you gonna do this with a keyboard
Right.
or
It
a
does.
touch screen?"
Mhm.
It does.
So I did tell it the touch screen,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it was seeing how, let's say, fluidly or quickly I categorize things. And it's funny, I at first I was getting all kinds of correct answers. It was a little bit later that I got some wrong, and I think I'm pleased to say really that my moderate bias is in favor of African Americans rather than European Americans. I had an easier time, good and person, you know, the face, there were face, you know, so I took that one. And, you know, I'm like afraid of what it's going to tell me.
Right,
But
I know, yeah.
Yeah, but there's also research showing that like there is a social desirability bias, and the more that like you know about the actual test, the more likely you are to kind of like show that counter bias or to not show a bias at all.
I didn't know much about the
Like that's why I took one that was like in an area I really don't have like much academic or intellectual understanding of, because it's like I think it would be I would be knowing what you know. I'm not saying that was but I think that the more knowledge you have of it, like the less it's not kind
Well,
of.
I was totally ignorant of it, and
That's
again,
great.
was contemplating deeply the instructions, and how can you get it wrong? And then an X would come up, and that drew me too. It's like, how can you get a wrong answer when you're talking about your own stuff?
How does that happen? How
I don't know.
Why do you get wrong answers? if
You
you're-
get a red X.
Well,
I don't remember that happening.
You know, if so, my experience
Gives you
with which is this evening, last minute.
Uh-huh.
But my experience with it was that it asked a question at first, and then it was this time thing, and it started out by saying, "We're going to show you these pictures and words, and we want you to tap on this side if it's African American and if it's a positive thing. And on this side, we want you to tap if it's European American and if it's a negative thing." So there were faces and there were some words like fantastic and, I don't know, dismal or whatever. So we're just having to say, yeah. So positive and African American, you know, and it would just show various faces and various words, and you just had to do it. So you could get it wrong because there could be a positive word, and I hit the wrong one, or a face that's really white and I categorize it wrong. And then what it did is the second thing was it then said, because so it associated African American and good and European American and bad, then it did African American and bad over here and European American and good over there. So my mistakes were on the second part, actually. I got so in a roll, African American is wonderful, you know, and then they switched them and I got a few wrong.
So it's one tool
Yeah.
that people can use and organizations can use in concert with other things.
Well, the other thing was reading the book you suggested, correct? That's part of that, which is,
Blind spot.
yeah, Blind Spot, thank you, which I haven't read.
Yeah. So that might be continuing homework.
I did just
Well,
finish.
Abby suggested another book, And was it at the end of the meeting that you remembered the book
Yeah, there were a
title?
couple. White fragility is one of them.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
And I just
And then
finished,
how to, what's the other one? Is it how to talk about race or?
I just finished one
Did you,
called Between the World and Me by Coates. And that is a very powerful book. It's probably less academic and more, it's written as an open letter to his son. But
We have
it
it at home.
Yeah, it's very
I have
powerful,
copies.
but I think these other books might be a little bit more
Mhm.
how-tos versus
Right.
more less autobiographical.
So it seems like we're getting, we started a little late, but now it's 7 o'clock, or my phone thinks it's 7. The only other item here was continuing discussion on evolution of committee.
It's so you want to talk about race.
Oh, so you want to talk about race as the other book?
Do we just wanna wrap this conversation up a little
Yeah.
bit?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I would wanna know, like, what do we want to get out of reading some of this stuff, or, you know, do we wanna just educate ourselves on the different ways to assess our own biases so that we can help the community with understanding how biases arise, or, you know, how to notice the biases better. I guess I would wanna know, like, the purpose of further discussion about it all, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I almost feel as if it's not a bad idea for us to continue the conversation as we're all using these tools to learn more. And then, is there an opportunity at some point to share what we're learning with other committees in the city so that they can, you know, this is totally like just off the cuff, but like putting together something that other committees, like, hey, here's some tools that we've come up with and some resources that may help you in your decision-making processes.
Right.
Good suggestion.
Sounds good.
That could be a goal for us someday.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we want to pick one of these books to, I mean, my books usually get a lot of carbon footprint on them before they get read. They go all over the place. I don't even know.
It's a story of my
They
life.
travel miles
Plane
this way
trips
and
with
miles
you,
this
yeah.
way and miles, you know. and
Or they
things-
just sit on a book, they sit next to my bed for about
Bedside.
3 years.
Yeah.
And then I flip them over so there's a different one on top.
Well, anyway, my thing for 2019 was to learn how to read again, so I have started to read again.
Good.
And so I'm interested in having potentially one of these kind of that we can just start to have as a shared mindset or to discuss or something like that.
There's also articles that like
Right.
long form articles.
Right,
I'm
right, right.
realistically.
That I could read in one sitting.
I mean, I'm in a book
Right,
club
right.
and literally I'm always like cramming, you know,
Yeah.
3 days before, like,
Right.
I read the book.
Yeah.
And I read constantly for work. So I would like, maybe we could find some articles that at
Right.
least start to discuss the points in these books. There's like book reviews where they will actually
Right.
outline the content.
Right. I like that.
I like the Cliff Notes.
I'm just being realistic.
Yeah,
I'm
you can
a
find
college
it on
professor. I
YouTube.
know students
YouTube.
wouldn't read
Right,
a book if I
right.
asked them, oh, for next time.
Several different people reviewing.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's a good idea too.
You can look on YouTube in terms of
There's great
YouTube
videos.
white fragility, you can do that.
There's
You're
some
gonna read
great
it to me.
videos, actually.
There's
really good stuff out
There's
there. Some
there's
great
a
ones.
TED Talk that's get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, there's some good TED Talks. That's good.
I mean, I think implicit bias also relates really well with emotional intelligence, and I've done a lot of reading and conferences on emotional intelligence as well. So I think it goes hand in hand and can be a really good foundation for us as a committee. And I think it can always be an agenda item to talk about and revisit.
Because one of the things that you're speaking up to is how, you know, having the conversation, which we were talking about, Patty, but how to deal with when these things come up. Because we don't always have the time to really fully educate somebody, you know, but to at least begin a conversation and know how to deal with that conversation, you know, especially if you've gone over a lot of stuff for yourself.
Right.
So are we gonna have this as an agenda item next time?
Yes.
Okay.
So-
A motion, I don't know.
Well, it's on there as a continuing business
Yeah.
discussion of implicit bias, and it does seem to be a continuing thing. I'm inclined to leave it as it is.
Super.
And in terms of the continuing discussion on evolution of committee, that would stay as is, or do we want to, for example, commit to looking at this TED Talk, get comfortable with being uncomfortable? Because TED Talks are what, 10 minutes?
Well, sometimes they're lengthy, but I find a
Usually
recording
20
like that easier to access rather than figuring out how to get a book. Unless it,
Yeah, well, and we could start with that, and then if some of us, I mean, I might do some other research that I could bring.
Well, so
next
do-
time.
One of the things I've been thinking of too is really looking at how are we going to be helpful to our community, you know, and really begin to suss that out.
I agree.
Mhm.
I would like to figure out some ways, because something we talked about earlier was just like going and talking to people, right?
Mhm.
Like going to the schools, going into, you know, different communities that
Right.
exist within this larger community, and just saying what's on your mind.
Mhm.
We have this new committee and we're still figuring out what it means, but if there's stuff that you have going on, you know, talk to us. You could come to a meeting, or you could just share your thoughts. Because to me, that's what I envisioned more.
I kept thinking about lots of potential programming that, I don't know, maybe this is out of the element, but programming that could really make a difference in the community and trying to build unity. And I kept thinking about good neighbors and being good neighbors and creating, you know, I could kind of envision a whole campaign like about being good neighbors and all kinds of things that would go with that to really do some outreach and some programming within the community to really try to foster people reaching out to one another and helping one another and being there for one another and being a good neighbor. And like the more we can, I think, find where people can find what they have in common and they can be more visible and present with one another, the more we can build a stronger sense of community and really build something that's really healthy, you know, to have good relationships and a really nice vibe to our city and all that sort of thing. So I keep picturing like these like campaigns of like these good neighboring campaigns, and like one thought I had was you know, having an organization, and I understand, I just learned as I came in the door, I was talking with Peg Conniff that this already exists, but like where we could match people who had needs, like they needed help with something, with people who are willing to help others. Things like someone's had surgery and they can't mow their lawn, and so they put in a request, and then someone says, hey, I can do that for you, I can help you out. Like a whole good neighboring system, so that we can be there for each other. One thing I keep reading a lot about is, I don't know why, but it keeps coming to me about all this focus on being front yard people instead of backyard people. And I could picture, like, I kind of like, my mind was running with that, thinking, wouldn't it be cool, like, if you had a whole campaign about, let's be a community of front yard people? Meaning, like, the more visible you are, the more you're out there, the more you're gonna welcome conversation and get to know people, find out what you have in common, build bridges with people, and I don't know, so I keep thinking about like all these kinds of wild ideas. I was thinking also, I don't even know how this came to me, but like the old days of welcome wagons, when people used to come into the community, and they were greeted, they were given, you know, whatever, fruit or a baked good or something from a local business, and a bunch of coupons, and businesses generally like that too, where they get to be introduced to the new people. But you know, maybe there could be room for there, and I'm not saying that we would be doing this ourselves, but to create these kinds of things in our community so that we have something like a welcome wagon, so that people, when they come to Easthampton, you know, someone's reaching out to them like the good old days, you know, with banana bread or whatever it is, so that hopefully they feel welcome and like this is a really warm and inviting community. So I like, my brain goes to all these kinds of things, the things to do, like campaigns we could launch, like to really try to transform how we neighbor, how we are good neighbors with each other, how we relate to one another. Create I kind of envision, like we've taken the lead in so many areas in Easthampton. I just think we're ripe for being that community that could really be a spotlight and an example for others around us, to be, you know, the community of good neighbors, you know, and kind of just build the love, you know.
A lot of those are ideas that came out of the
trust,
city
yeah.
spirit thing too. There were a lot of ideas around like having like ethnic food events, like where people could learn about different, you know,
cultures and
different languages, just even sharing recipes. Like that was an idea that I came up with somebody, where it was just like, these are things I'd love to make, I don't know how to make, you know, like, so it's a way of sharing and also exchanging. So, but that was a common theme of like finding ways to help people figure out what they have in common, or learn from each other.
Learn from each other, yeah, share, because now that you mention that, I remember years ago, at the elementary school, I'm not sure if they still do it, but there was a cultural something, something night. Anyway, it was just that, like everybody came and they represented their country from wherever they were from, or their background, their heritage, or whatever, and shared recipes, shared clothing, people dressed up, they told stories, and it was a cool event. Like kids loved it, parents loved it. It was really like unifying. So I don't know. Yeah, like there's just like, to me, I forgive me because I've got a lot of catching up to do to get to where you all are in this process. And I know you went through a lot of sessions with different folks and did a lot of brainstorming and all that, and I've missed all that, so please forgive me if I'm jumping in inappropriately, but I just keep thinking about all kinds of things like that this committee could launch or initiate or make happen. You know, even like I said, not everyone in this room doing all of that work all the time, but to kind of take the lead in creating some of these kind of unifying, neighborly, positive kind of programs. I don't
So
know.
maybe that can go on the next agenda meeting, like for continuing business, talking about these like campaigns and these good neighbor ideas.
And I think we should definitely, going back to what Abby was saying about getting out in the community, which is not to go back, but one of the reasons why I thought it might not be a bad idea for somebody to be at Saturday. I can't be there. But because I think that is really important, that we're the community relations committee. We should be at things. You know, somebody should be at things around, and you know, one or two. Two is always better than one.
That just made me think too. We may want to talk about some way of like identifying ourselves with like a pin or something that's just more like an invitation. I'm thinking like at big events like Cultural Chaos, where somebody could come up and identify you and say,
have something
I wanted to bring it up to you, or you know, I've been meaning to come to your meetings but I can't make them. This is, you know, so that way it's an invitation for people so that they know that we're accessible. Yeah. But I'm aware.
I think it's more, and I think it's really important, even if we don't have exactly the answers of what we're doing.
I'm also
We're meeting on a regular basis, and we are working through what are things that you see that in this community that need to be addressed. That's all we have to say. We don't have to say, 100% what everything we're doing.
Well, the other thing is, like you made reference to the city spirit survey. Maybe we should I mean, I read this 4 months ago. Theoretically, it creates a study guide for us, basically, you know, a way to, you know, for us to, in some way, I mean, we can read the book, we can watch a TED Talk, we can read the data that has come out of work that's already been done, and how to see if this makes sense for us to kind of narrow down our focus, and then how to come up with, how to, how to implement.
Have some
But we-
action plans.
Yeah, we don't, we have to kind of all get on board for like if there's 3 agendas we want to really focus on, or 1, I don't even know, but yeah, I think we've been very kind of loosely connected. I mean, you've missed certain things, but, I don't know, we've kind of been gradually rolling along. That's
Figuring
how
it
it
out.
feels.
I think we've done a lot of formative things. We're really only getting to talk about issues with just, I mean, you brought up implicit bias, but we really haven't done a whole lot with it yet. And I wonder, as part of our contemplations, if, if people know local people and organizations who are resources that we can also begin to call on, because as you're saying, the 11 of us aren't necessarily gonna be the ones that are doing all of, or carrying out everything, but we might be leaders because we might see, gee, certain thing would be nice, and what if we ask this group here, or that group there, and,
Or put
Because
together a
there's-
whole new group.
there's some, but I'd like us to develop a list of resources so that we can think about that. I mean, there was an event last holiday season where the Prindle School led this sing-along, and of course, I think that the, Denise, whom we lost, was part of that too, organizing it. But it was inclusive, it was including the Hebrew song for Hanukkah, it was including, traditional Christmas things. And I happen to be a Baha'i, we shared a song too, and that was very nice. So that was an inclusive thing, and singing. So I feel like the Prindle School is there, and they might support, other efforts.
So just to clarify, because I think we have to wrap up.
Yeah.
I heard 3 things really crystal clear, which was, one was helping other committees, potentially departments in the city, deal with implicit bias. One was us going out into the community and hearing what people have to say, and we haven't defined exactly what that means, but I think it's a great idea. And the other was us supporting or helping to launch, positive community relations among neighbors and community members. So I wonder if those are things we want to sort of start considering, not to get rid of anything else that we might be doing, but start considering that those are the things where we're all shaking our head yes when everybody's talking about those things.
Yeah.
So maybe we could just
Start defining.
have
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
clear, those 3 clear things, like
On the agenda.
On the agenda.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
I really
yeah,
so.
and we have to make a motion to.
I'll make a
To-
motion to adjourn.
Oh, can I have a second?
7:18.
All right, all in favor of adjourn?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Oh, I don't think this actually needs to be part of the meeting. Peg Coniff gave this. This is the,
Here's the
the
time.
resolution.
Oh,
the
great,
safe-
thank you.
I got one.
Oh, you got one?
So before everyone goes, I would love to hear your names and something about all of you.
Oh, yeah, and let me turn this off, I'm
Did you
sorry.
get one?
Did that
Oh,
work?
we haven't adjourned the meeting yet.
You're still on red.
We adjourned.
I thought I called for the vote.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
was that the adjournment? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.